Good morning. Thank you for joining us for the latest webinar in our webinar series. Today's webinar is on providing a seamless user experience through your website, and it's put on by Arbuckle Media. So happy you took the time to join us today. My name is Nick Fry. I'm the Manager of Business Development with Tourism Nova Scotia. And Tourism Nova Scotia is a division of Communities, Culture, Tourism, and Heritage with the provincial government. We work with communities and industries to attract visitors to the province to increase revenues. And we work with them on experiences and sector development through business coaching, marketing, and visitor servicing. So thank you for joining us, and really excited that you can be here today. This webinar will be recorded, so if you have to leave at 11 and we're running a little bit over, that's great. If you find it really valuable and you want to come back and review it, or if you want to share it with a colleague or someone else in the industry, we would encourage you to do so. Any links or resources we speak about throughout the webinar, whether it be on our side or with Arbuckle, we will share those after the fact, so you don't have to, write them down or worry about that. We will share them later. And as I said before, this webinar is recorded, as are all previous webinars. So if you find this valuable and you'd like to check out our other ones, please do so. Closed captioning is enabled. And if you don't want to have that on your screen, you can just simply click it off on your toolbar. Again, hopefully you joined us through Digiport. And if you didn't, we would encourage you to check out Digiport, sign up for it. It's the only one-stop shop of its kind for tourism businesses in Canada. It offers educational opportunities, programming, professional support, and you can sign up for that or find out more information at nsdigiport.ca, and it's on the screen there. So really excited today to have Joel Arbuckle back. We've had Joel before. Joel's the founder of Arbuckle Media, and he's an award-winning marketing tech agency that raises product-based brands by building powerful e-commerce experiences and generating business demand. Joel's experience in developing robust e-commerce websites, along with his interest in cybersecurity and passion for small business advocacy, really wants to help small business owners learn and hone the fundamentals and develop fluency around these critical concepts and terms. Joel's presented before. We've also had him at our Digital Days events, very knowledgeable, and really excited to have Joel today. I'd like to welcome Joel to the screen and also encourage him to share his presentation. Like any good webinar, we encourage questions. So the more questions, the better. Thank you so much, and welcome, Joel.
Yeah, thanks for the very warm intro, Nick. I appreciate that. Thanks everyone for joining today, and I hope you find something useful with this.
Sorry, Joel. We're just going to get you to put your video on there.
Oh, there we go. Let's try that.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks again for the warm intro, and yeah, excited to share this topic. We've already had the opportunity to run this through with a lot of great participants in person. So hopefully this workshop certainly resonates with some of the viewers today. So the topic is around building a seamless user experience through your website. And what we really want to do is focus on understanding the fundamentals, just because user experience, UX, and web development are very heady, very difficult and complex topics, doesn't mean that the average marketer, the average owner-operator of a small business can't understand the fundamentals and then begin to make meaningful improvements to their users' experience. Because at the end of the day, the website is a tool, it's a platform in your marketing channel arsenal. And ultimately, it's a very important one because of from an e-commerce standpoint, that's where your transactions are happening, that's where sales are happening. But even if you're not using your website as an e-commerce platform, you're still, again, best representing your brand, your offerings through this. And this, of course, becomes a portal. It becomes a 24/7 window into your business. And you don't want to fall behind when it comes to providing this experience. You want it to be reflective of that. So before we jump into the meat of what I want to talk about today, just want to run over a few housekeeping items. So at the end of this, we want to really understand, who the website's intended users are, setting aside your own idiosyncrasies, your own vision for the website for a moment, and understanding who your intended audience really is when it comes to the website. Understanding and self-identifying your own problem areas, your own limitations, challenges that you've had with your user experience and the management of your website, or the administration of your website. And of course, the limits of your budget and bandwidth. It doesn't mean that you have to spend a bunch of money on a big fancy website to have a good user experience. And this is a lot of things that we hear when we're working with different clients of all shapes and sizes. You'll probably resonate with some of these, not having the ability to organize, plan, or strategize efforts ahead of time when it comes to building or even maintaining a website. You're not reviewing frequently your analytics, whatever platform you use. It's not a really true or honest reflection of the actual business, the experience that someone would have in visiting your location or the products or services that you market. And really, you don't have the in-house expertise to regularly monitor, troubleshoot problems when they come up, and solve those problems. And that's true of teams big and small across the board. We're going to hear that. So if that resonates with you, then we want to understand why UX matters and what the tangible benefits of it. UX is a design term. I'm not sure who coined it, but again, it's when you hear these sort of acronyms, marketing or web development acronyms, they become a little unfriendly. So I want to kind of break that down a little bit and break down the barrier and show everyone that everyone can understand UX because you experience it every day. You experience it on and offline as well. Anytime you go to a self-checkout, the UI, the UX that you're experiencing out the self-checkout, the difficulties that you have, you're experiencing it every single day. Everyone's been to a website and been online at some point. You're experiencing it constantly. Even in your car, user experience, driver experience is part of the design, the engineering. So you're experiencing regardless. And when you begin to break it down and reflect on what's good, what works for you, what doesn't, you become a user experience designer. So let's also talk about how to review your own UI UX. So let's jump into it. So let's talk about UI UX, talk about the terms. And UI, or user interface, is essentially everything that you see, how it looks, how your web pages display, how well they read, how do they lead the eye, up or down the page, left or right on a scroll. And it deals with specific things that the user will interact with. So it's the interface, it's all the panels, the buttons. You encounter in UI every single day, but you really remember bad UI more so than good UI. Good UI, you don't notice. Bad UI, it's confusing, it's inconvenient. You don't know where the right next step is, where the right button is, what action to take. Maybe it's illegible, it's hard to read, it's clunky, it looks dated, it looks disorganized or chaotic, and it doesn't reflect the visual standards or the brand standards that you may have when best representing your brand. So it's important to know a few terms around good UI or UI in general, so that we can begin to, again, think more critically about our own or about other and assess other UI that we see that we might like to borrow or take some ideas from. So above the fold, this term comes up a lot. And the importance, significance of this term, there's many UI terms, but I think the four that I've chosen are ones that I really want to talk about today and use in this presentation, because above the fold, it's an old term actually from newspaper speak. So everything above the fold, when you see a stack of newspapers, everything that's above the fold is what's facing up. And it's the first thing that you see. And it's meant to be an attention grabber. It's meant to be clear, you're in the right place. When you have good UI and above the fold location, it's everything that happens before the user has to scroll for the first time. And it really should be assuring to the user that they are in the right place. It should be happening quickly, giving them an instant response. And it ultimately, it really does need to be compelling, because most bounces, most exits from a web page or a website in general are going to happen before the user even scrolls. So convincing the user to continue on in the experience happens above the fold. And it happens within the first 1 to 4 seconds above the fold as well. So the above the fold is everything for a landing page, a home page, a product page. And then we get into accessibility. Accessibility really is, it's important because you have to think about the types of users, the types of devices they're using, the age of the user. Seeing something that's a very low contrast ratio, for example, a slightly off-white bit of text over a white background is going to be hard even for the youngest device to read. So how do you expect users to be able to read this, especially if it's a small font? So thinking about accessibility constantly is a fundamental component of UI. Whether it's good or bad is usually it's made or broken based on the accessibility of it. A call to action. Of course, good UI, again, we talked about buttons a moment ago. Good UI is going to have some clear next step that the user can take. So without a clear next step, without a call to action, the user is going to leave confused. They're not going to know where to go next. They're not going to clearly see, and at a glance, it really should pop off the page what you want the user to do, but also what the user intuitively would like to do as well by being on the web page. And of course, a wireframe. So UI and UX, it doesn't necessarily come from thin air. Of course, a lot of creative ideas come from our heads. A lot of them come from other places that we've seen them. But we can't just go right into a website, whether it's a WordPress, Shopify, a Squarespace website, a Wix website, and just begin editing the web page, even from a template. It becomes difficult because along the way, we kind of lose sight of the vision that we once had. Even if it's our own design and we're managing it ourselves, and we only have ourselves to answer to, a lot of the times going the route of just directly editing a web page or a template or a theme file, you're going to kind of lose your own vision in it. And of course, end up unhappy with it or end up confused or you forget something. So planning is everything when it comes to the complexity of a website. And the first step, of course, is going to be through a wireframe. So wireframing something out means, even if it's as simple as some chicken scratch pen on a napkin, that's a wireframe. It can be a more advanced set of UI UX panels in a platform like Figma or Adobe XD. But again, it could be as simple as pen to paper, and just it's a thought that counts, and it's a thinking out and planning that is really going to make the difference when it comes to seeing through a final product, especially when you get more than just users or marketers involved. So now we know what UI looks like, but what is UX? User experience is everything else. So UI is simply how it looks, but UX becomes how it works, how it reacts, how tactile the website feels. And it's also how things interact with each other as well. Is the logic there from going from one UI panel to the next is where user experience comes in. If someone clicks add to cart and nothing happens, that's confusing. It's going to be frustrating. So you begin to remember bad UI because it's going to be discouraging to the user. It's not going to be clear as to what just happened when someone clicked a button if nothing loaded. So that's poor UX. Good UX is intuitive. It matches the user's expectations. The user has a good understanding or can make a good presumption on, if I click an add to cart button, something's going to be added to my cart. If I click checkout, I'm going to go to a place where I can enter in my credit card information. It doesn't make me take redundant steps. Bad UX is going to make a user lost or stuck or take redundant steps or ultimately give up or find an alternative, whether that's a competitor, whether that's getting on the phone and complaining to you about your website or not complaining, which can be worse. It's simply not a set it and forget it mentality that you take when it comes to US, because it constantly needs to be tested. Because ultimately with UX, no one's ever gone to school. No one's ever taken a course in how to shop from a website per se. And this is important because Amazon, Google Shopping, all these platforms use good UI UX for the most part, but they've never taught their users how to actually shop on the website. And that's because globally across all these different platforms, all these marketplaces, all these websites, you see the same components. Essentially, every website is a homepage, a product page, a cart page, a checkout page. And you intuitively know how to move between these. And the customer, the user, doesn't need to be taught. Now, the more confusing or the more the more different you start to think about these things, the less intuitive it may become. So you always run the risk of unique is not always a good thing, in that if it's not intuitive to what the user may assume based on their past experiences of shopping on their phone, of booking on their laptop, it becomes counterintuitive and counterproductive to good UX. So it's about the entire journey. So when the user embarks on a website, they come in hand with a purpose, with a goal in mind. They want to accomplish something on the website. Now, what they want to accomplish and what you want your user to accomplish may be the same thing, but it also may be two different things. And you have to take that in mind. The user and the customer are paramount. So it really comes down to, what is that user trying to achieve? What would you like them to achieve? And is that possible? How are they able to achieve that? Again, the website is a tool. Is it a refined tool, or is it a blunt object? Is it something that's streamlined and loads quickly and has very clear call to actions? Or is it dated and confusing and everything's grayscale and nothing works? And you have to be very objective again, and thinking about the user's goals constantly, and setting aside your own beliefs on whether or not your website is working. And we'll talk a little bit later about analytics and how they can give you that instant feedback. And good UX, again, it feels right. It's something you don't really, unfortunately, notice when it's working well. Unless you're sitting down and doing a full audit, you're not going to really know when you've experienced good UX, but you will know the opposite. And the key really to maintaining a positive user experience is to think critically about even the small details, and be willing to compromise on your vision in favor of trends in device demands and developments, user behaviors, and really focus on being customer-centric, being user-centric, and thinking about their needs first and what their expectations and assumptions might be. And really the benefits most tangibly are, you're going to have less customer complaints. You're going to have, there's even SEO ranking benefits. SEO, or search engine optimization, which we're not really going to talk about today, does actually go hand in hand. And when it comes to a website, everything is related. But now Google and Bing and all the search engines are really taking into account not only the words on the page and, is this website about what the user is searching for, but they're also taking into account how accessible is the website, how user-friendly is the website, how device-friendly is the website. And the poorer the experience between your desktop and mobile sites, the harder it is to read elements on a page or click between two different buttons that may be side by side, actually will impact your score, your ability to rank. And ultimately, conversions happen. Add to carts happen, email opt-ins happen when you have good UX. You're going to have conversions happen even on a adequate user experience design. But again, really sharpening that knife's edge does increase the conversion rate, and we do see the results in little steps and small details that really have a snowball effect overall when it comes to thousands of visits over month over month. You're going to get that feedback from your analytics, but you're also going to see an increase in incrementally over time. The more you get put into UX, certainly the more you and your users, most importantly, get out of it. So when it comes to good UX, we'll go over a couple of concepts here, and these are really important ones to think about. So you may have heard about the terminology of heat map. So we'll talk about analytics a little bit later, but heat map ultimately is a visual representation of your analytics. You can use heat map tools to actually visualize what users are doing on the website, where they're clicking, where they're spending their time, and it will give you a good indicator. And there's no better indicator than real world experience, real world testing, than for any user experience design. There's no better way to know that from analytics. And of course, one great tool to use is a heat map. So understanding the heat map of your UI panels and where people are spending their time, how they're behaving on the website is going to be paramount to making improvements on there. And again, exploratory testing. So this is one that is often overlooked, but it's probably the easiest way to actually know what's happening on your webpage. Exploratory testing is very simple. It's just an evaluation of how easy a website product is to use by testing it and putting your customer hat on for a moment and pretending as though you're a customer looking to achieve one of the goals that they may be trying to achieve on the website. So exploratory testing is something that has a very low barrier. It's simply using the website, adding products to the cart, attempting a checkout, those sorts of things. So exploratory testing is simply using your website and doing it on a regular and routine basis to identify issues, as they're arising or potentially before they're noticed by the bulk of your users. A user flow. So this is, again, thinking about your user's experience is thinking about their objective. They're going to start somewhere. They're going to come on to the website from a specific landing page. That may be a landing page from an ad campaign. That may be the homepage, maybe specific product pages. And then we can think about from there, where are they going next? What is the next stop along the way? It describes the intended series of steps a user needs to take to complete a goal on the website. This is often going to include, naming buttons, calls to action, different events that can happen on the page during each step of the way, and what is the end goal. So really identifying what a user journey looks like, a user flow looks like, will set you up for a better understanding of your own user experiences on your own website. And finally, and really important here, is mobile responsiveness. Now, the goal here is really to think about, again, if we're going to be thinking about user flows, we have to take into account devices. And if we're going to be doing proper exploratory testing, we're going to be testing that across multiple devices. And mobile responsiveness really means it doesn't matter what screen size you're looking at. It doesn't matter what type of device or browser you're going to be using. Is your website going to share the same or similar enough experience? As a user, I want to have the same experience on a website or be able to achieve the same goals, regardless of what device I'm using at the time. And it's often that users will look at websites for the first time on their mobile device and also later visit it from their laptop or from their desktop computer or while they're at work. And then at that point, make the checkout or the conversion event happen. So it's often a first touch from a mobile device and then a later touch or a conversion point from a mobile again, maybe from an iPad or maybe from their desktop. And that user needs to be able to have that same or similar enough experience, or else they're going to get confused. They're going to be unhappy. They might not be able to find something, and then they'll end up not converting in the end. So following some simple rules, we can begin to take the concepts that we just spoke about and really put that into practice and think about some best practices here. So again, the user's perspective must be the primary focus always. And you are not the user. Really the sales, the cash transaction here is king in that you're not buying from your own website. Your end user is your target customer, is whether that's the customer you have or the customer you want. That's who really matters in this whole design thinking. And you really have to understand who they are deeply. Are they a demographic that is typically less tech savvy? Maybe things need to be made in bigger fonts, need to be made a little bit simpler to understand. Is it a more tech savvy crowd, or is it are you having users from different language groups? In which case, offering your user experience design seamlessly in both French and English may be the key. And think about their expectations. What do they want to achieve, and how do they achieve it on other comparable websites as well? Every step of the way in the user flow we designed and we just spoke about must always move the user forward. Now, creating a leaky bucket could be something like adding social media icons to your header, or adding completely irrelevant blog post links to your product page. It's going to give someone the opportunity to move laterally or move even backwards. Instead, closing up those holes and always focusing on one end goal on each page, and moving the user forward clearly and with clarity is going to be the key to moving that user forward and eventually getting them to some point of conversion. And your conversion may not be buying a product and getting it shipped. It may be booking. It may simply be submitting a contact form. It could be an email opt-in, could be your definition of conversion. You can have multiple definitions of conversion, but thinking about how do I use the information that I can give on page to move the user forward, and not forcing them to repeat the same actions over and over is going to be another very easy win when moving a user forward. A user is complex, just like every human being is complex. A user can be thought of as sophisticated as they are simple. So making everything work on the same devices, a user may have 3 or 4 devices nowadays, and they may be sophisticated in that regard, but they still want to have the same experience. So keeping it simple, making it clear, of course, what the most important consideration or call to action is on every single page. You may think you have a couple of different ones on your homepage. You may have opportunities for a customer to shop now. You may have opportunities for a customer to get in contact, to learn more about the people behind your brand, even to opt into email marketing. And that's fine. And that's certainly going to be the case for most. But you have to identify what is the most important to the user, or what is the most important to your business goals, and really make that pop and make that clearly take up a certain sense of visual hierarchy on the page. Change, for example, if you have multiple buttons on one page, and you really think, okay, each one of these are important. I would like the user to have the option for each one of these. That's great, but you still want to lead them down a path of choosing the one that's most important to you, and really pulling attention to there. That most important button, whether it's shop now, add to cart, that could be the only button that has color on it, while all the other buttons are black and white, for example. Using good use of white space to pull attention. So less is more, in that you want to use an economy of words, actions, features. You want to consider not, sort of putting, beauty over function. You want to have things streamlined and simple. Again, keep things simple for even the most sophisticated user. Making the navigation confusing, and not forcing the user's hands, but again, leading them along the path that you want to eventually lead that user to their ultimate goal or objective on the site is ideal. Important decisions that you want to make for your user's experience design need to be backed by some data. Now, when you're starting a new website from scratch, launching your first ever website, you may not have a ton of data. Of course, you'll have no data at this point from your own analytics, and that's fine. You can look at generally accepted best practices. You can look at comparable sites and make some generalizations. But the most useful tool you can have is, over time, deploying an analytics tool, whether that's Google Analytics, whether that's an onboard analytics tool within the platform like Squarespace has or Shopify has. Those analytics are going to tell you a lot of things. And that data needs to be taken as the most objective source and key over your own sort of thoughts, beliefs, or your own idiosyncrasies. And really thinking about what's happened on your website historically is going to be key to how users are actually acting. It's the next best thing to actually sitting down and watching someone use your website is looking at analytics of your website, or the next best thing to interviewing a website user or a customer is looking at analytics and looking at a greater picture of data. And constantly testing your website is going to be key, because really your user's experience can always be improved. Even the best websites, there's going to be multiple moving pieces to them. There's going to be new offers or new improvements, new product launches. And every time you're adding something to the complexity that is your website, even just simply updating content on a page, you need to be reviewing it. You need to be testing it yourself, having others test it for you. Really making sure that you're constantly monitoring. And again, it doesn't have to be every single day, especially if you don't have the bandwidth within your team to do so, but making it a routine. I know a lot of clients that we work with, they have someone dedicated every Monday morning at 8:30 a.m. Pacific. They have someone going and making an order on the website, and they do this, every 2 or 3 days. And the important significance of this is they're able to, by making this part of the routine, it doesn't take very long. It takes maybe 5 minutes at the most, but they're able to catch items or issues on the website page or within the user experience early enough. Again, you're going to have some people complain, but by and large, most users are simply going to navigate away, or they're going to close the website. They're going to close the page before they ever make a remark to your customer service team if there is an issue with trying to submit a form or complete a checkout. So let's look at a few examples in the wild before we jump into our analytics and what that'll tell us. So now that we've discussed some of the best practices around user interface and user experience, let's take a look at what that tangibly might look like, both good and bad. So one common example that I like to give is a little known brand by Zara and their website, zara.com. It does lend itself to being very trendy, very fashion forward. However, it does leave a lot to be desired when it comes to user experience. And while their target demo may be a younger demographic, it, even for my eyes, it does make it a little counterintuitive in terms of their layout and design. It makes the initial navigation when you're loading the homepage for the first time very confusing and hard to find. It's also very small and not very accessible to anyone who may need a larger font size on the screen. Even things like there's no filter options for size or color when you navigate to the category of your choosing. It's very frustrating. It's very annoying to have to really dig through their catalog when some users may be coming in. One type of user is a user that's going to come in and want to browse around. But recurring or revisiting users are most likely going to come in with a specific product objective in mind. They're going to come in looking for a very specific product in a specific size or color. And it takes a lot longer for them to do so. So, when you're forcing your user to stay on your website to accomplish a simple objective, you're frustrating your user. Ideally, you do want to keep your user on page or on your website for a longer period of time. But if the time in between objectives is long, they're going to be frustrated. They're going to be thinking about where else they could shop that it could, get them in and out a lot quicker. So the navigation really should aid the user in finding what they're looking for, and really think about why the user is visiting your website and the options that they would want to have when navigating your catalog or navigating your offerings. This is another one. This is a forum. If you've been to Reddit, it looks somewhat similar, but this is really an example of dated UI. So the screen's very busy. There's a lot happening in a small section of the screen. And really, there's no call to action buttons here. It's very, the user isn't really driven forward in any regard or in a friendly way. And a lot of things are just sort of the same. Really, nothing jumps off the page very well. And one thing you can see here in the screen grab is it's not very clear what's going to happen next. When I click something, it's not very clear to me at a glance that I'm going to be taken to an entirely different website when I click something. And that's going to be jarring to the user experience as well. The user is going to be confused as to why they ended up on a third-party website when they just simply clicked one link that looked like all the other links on the page. You really have to denote when you're going to bring someone to another page. And the site in general really does nothing to draw the user into the news articles themselves. There's no featured images. breaking news, for example, or major news or trending news topics don't stand out from regular forum behaviors or forum questions in this regard. Really, everything is flat, everything is the same, and nothing really takes priority or has hierarchy. Now let's take a look at a good UI UX example. Airbnb, whether you love it or hate the platform, does actually do a great job, and I will commend them on their UI and UX components here. And that's because their brand, Airbnb, the logo, a lot of different features and functions and filters of the website really do take a backseat to the listings. They give you the minimum number of options that you would require. It doesn't necessarily overwhelm you with choice when it comes to filters, although they are available, they are accessible by hitting the filters button. But they really make the listings, the products in this case, do the talking. The pictures, the filter menu is grayscale, and the pictures are all in beautiful color. And you're really at a glance able to navigate their catalog of different listings. And it really invites the user to clicking on each of the product cards, as we would call it, the cards for each of the listings, and really kind of lets the pictures the media do all the talking, which is really important when it comes to listings or products in general. And I really like the grid. It's uniform, it's clean. The use of white space here is that nothing else on the page, short of the search icon, which is an important user interface component at the top in the center of the header, and the Airbnb logo, of course, which isn't just advertising. Having the Airbnb logo in color is important. One, because it's on brand, but two, because it's also reassuring to the user they're in the right place. They're on the right website. They expect to be on airbnb.com or .ca, and they are here. So it's reassuring. But those all do take a back seat, both in their size and their color and visual hierarchy on the page to the listings themselves. And not necessarily a website per se, as much as it is a platform, but it's still Netflix.com or Netflix.ca is a good example of where you have a lot of different visuals. Again, similar to Airbnb, you have a lot of different visuals. You have a lot of different ways to show information, but it's done simply. We're not inundated with a bunch of information, with a bunch of different calls to action. There are promoted things. You can see the new episode badges, but ultimately everything is shown fairly uniformly. Even though there's so much information being given, everything does represent itself very well on Netflix's platform. The user experience is very straightforward. You click something, the immediate option is to play the next episode or to start the movie. I've had other trouble with other streaming services in the past where the features were annoying. It was slow to load. It wasn't something before I was even able to see the preview text of the episode or the movie. Simply clicking on it just launched me into play mode, which isn't necessarily always going to be what the user wants to see or what wants to do. So it does seem like small details, but they ultimately become annoying to the user. And there's a reason why you might enjoy one platform over the other. And it could come down to the user experience and how it feels when I'm looking through. It's fairly distraction free, and it's laser focused on getting me through Netflix's entire catalog. And one I'd like an honorable mention here, and what I'd say is award for most improved is I've seen Canadian Tire, their website. The nav was clunky. It was dated looking. It was hard to find what I was looking for. There's a lot of bad UX happening here. The homepage was a challenge. And of course, they have a massive catalog. They have a lot of things happening, a lot of different sales and flyer events happening. So what they did was they streamlined their UX. What they did was they added this, they changed their header to a black background, and they realized really there's essentially two primary types of users. There's users who are here to browse. They may be scrolling down the homepage. They may be looking at the super sale as you see here in the screenshot. They may be wanting to browse the catalog, but a lot of users are coming to a hardware store because they know roughly what they're looking for. They either know the category or the function of the product that they're looking for, or they know the specific product by name or the brand name of the product. And they're going to be using the search function. So that's why I think this is a great example of improved UI UX, because we see now that the search bar is centered in the middle. It's stand out in that it's a white bar on a black background now, and it's right in the middle. It really caters to that large demographic of their user base, which is people who are searching for a specific category, a specific product, a specific use case or function that they want to achieve. So now that we looked at some best practices, we've looked at some examples of good and bad UI and UX. Let's talk about where we can start today. So ultimately, the way that we attempt to tackle any project, whether it's big or small, from my perspective as a web developer, as a marketer, is the first and foremost, who is the user? Let's talk about their story. Let's talk about their journey from a Google search through to being a final customer, from converting on your website, from giving you their hard-earned dollars. What does that journey look like? What are the touch points? And what is the objective? Why are they on the website? What steps do they need? What information, what additional information do they need to know? When buying something from a new website, whether a website doesn't have many product reviews, they want to know that you have a money-back guarantee policy. They want to know what your refund policy is. They want, if they're getting it shipped to them and you don't offer local delivery, they want to know what's your shipping policy. How long is it going to take? How much is it going to cost? Do you offer free shipping? All of these things are concerns, and they need to be thought about from the user's perspective. And those will help inform better decisions on your product pages, on your homepage, and really make it possible for you to communicate in the user's language. So really a lot of ways of thinking about the website are from the business end. You know, okay, here's my offerings, here's my catalog, here's my information, figure it out. And that's really not going to be user focused. It's not going to be conversion optimized, is another sort of marketing buzzword you might hear, but it's true. It's not really going to be focused on the user. May or may not be already familiar with your brand. They may or may not have been to the website before. So you have to find a way that intuitively communicates to both of those user segments, to recurring or visiting customers, to new customers, and making sure that the information is not overwhelming, but is available. And it's a constant balance and thought process that really needs to start from the user's journey. And that's the first place you can start. Outline the user flow, outline who they are and what they're trying to do when they're on the web page. Follow a set of established best practices as well. If you don't know where to start, Google search. What does make a good product page? What makes a bad product page? Look at things that are very simple and easy to follow. And less is more. Prioritize. You can't tackle all of your website pages in one day, and you certainly can't tackle all of the potential conversion rate optimization ideas or best practices that are out there. So start with one at a time, and your website will be a growing sort of evolving beast over time. And that's really when you start to see progress over time. It's not all going to happen at one moment. And you're going to need to look at established best practices and your own analytics as well. So kind of breeze through some ideas here, and you'll be able to see the full set of ideas and questions and sort of prompts to think about when thinking about best practices after the presentation. But thinking about, are colors helpful or harmful to the presentation, to the legibility of the content on the page? Are buttons displaying correctly and functioning as intended? Are image media appropriate, both for the context and also the size, the proportionality? Is it taking too much away from the user's goal on the page, or is it adding? And really thinking constantly about when you're adding new bells and whistles, new functions, whether that's movement on the page, whether that's additional buttons, does it meaningfully add a market improvement to the user's experience? And if you aren't sure of this, it's most likely not. If it's something that's definitive that the user needs to know, it most likely is. Can a user utilize the navigation to get to logical points in between pages without friction? doesn't make sense as to why the user would want to go from page A to page B in order to get to page C. We can look at homepage best practices. Homepage is often far and away going to be one of the most important pages of your business's website because it is the hub for everything that's happening now. You're going to see the latest announcements, or at least you should see the latest announcements, the focus from a business, from really a business perspective, what the latest products added to your catalog are, what the latest sale or promotion is, really all of the focus and what the initial goal that you want to put in front of the customer can lend itself here. We'll also want to see sort of the other greatest hits from this album, which is a grid for categories and products, different collections or categories, best sellers, newest, on sale. Those types of grids or categories can be here too. A clear layout of all the different sections, really a clear and qualifying intro headline, maybe containing a positioning statement, or again, identifying that someone is in the right place. Social proof. So a big one is going to be, do I see social proof of the experience? Do I see social proof of the product? Do I see social proof of the business in general? Taking reviews or testimonials, whether that's direct from a customer's email or direct from Google or direct from a Facebook page. Any of those are going to go a long way in convincing others that someone else has had a good experience, and that is another reason why they should buy from you. An email opt-in, a way to get someone into your marketing and sales funnel who may not be yet ready to convert, but now you're able to make that direct link to them, that direct contact to them. And of course, clear calls to action. So if you've got one call to action, which is book now, make that appear on the page, make it appear above the fold, make it appear somewhere below the fold, somewhere that is shortly following social proof. Once someone has identified, okay, this place looks great, and now I've read reviews and this place sounds great, okay, now do I book? Instead of making the user scroll all the way back up to the top, can they just click book now immediately after reading the rave reviews you have? Category pages are really about, if you have a collection or a catalog of products, whether those are physical products, like you see here in the screenshot, or whether that's a catalog of different rooms and accommodations, a catalog of different service offerings, a catalog of different experiences. Those are all can be thought of as category or collections. And really what you want to be doing is helping users, again, they know what their objective is, or roughly what their objective is, what their interests are in visiting your website, helping them filter through everything that you have to offer. It may be that you have a great catalog of men's and women's fashion items, but me, myself, I'm really going to be shopping for one particular size, one particular color that I like, and I'm not going to be looking through wanting to see a relevant item. So really, it's about helping people sort of self-identify and find what they're here to look for, helping them accomplish their goals. A product page is really going to be a point of conversion where someone is going to be ideally adding to cart. So you want to make the add to cart button stand alone. You want to make it pop. You want to make sure that all the product information is here. So again, we're bringing in social proof, like reviews about a specific product, ratings out of 5. Commonly see most websites are going to see 5-star out of 5-star ratings. You're going to see descriptive product titles. You're going to see not only one product photo, but additional product media that really show use case. You're going to see an opportunity if the product is out of stock. Maybe I can opt in. If you've been to IKEA's website, I'm sure you've seen the ability to get notified about one specific product. You don't even have to opt into their email marketing, but you can get notified about when a product is back in stock. And you're going to see all the other different benefits and features. You're going to see the different ways that a product can be used and what it's good for. And this applies not only to physical products, of course, but to room accommodations as well. Amenities. We're going to see different reviews about the specific rooms, people in the rooms, perhaps, in a staged photo shoot. And really, the product page is not only about outlining, does this product fit the end user's use case, but also helps them visualize them using the product or experiencing the venue, experiencing the accommodation, experiencing the room or the restaurant, the offering, and really helping them visualize that is adding that human component into the additional media as well. Contact page, again, you're going to be able to get contact information hours. This is somewhere where you can answer frequently asked questions to help mitigate contact. It's often that people are using the contact page or contact information really to ask clarifying questions to find out about shipping or returns policies. If you can nip that in the bud while someone is still on the website itself, they may not leave it and need to come back after they've tried to email or phone you. They may be able to answer it for themselves, self-identify that this works for them, and then go on to convert. The cart page, just before we get to the checkout page, of course, needs to be clean. It needs to be an invoice. It needs to be clear how much a user's credit card is going to be charged for. It's going to be clear what they've added. They have the right quantities. They have the right products. It's going to be that reassurance and confirmation that the users got what they came for. And of course, the checkout page needs to be clear that someone is going to be converting. It's again going to be reiterating, I see my shipping information here. I've got that confirmation that whether or not I see how long it's going to ship, at least I know exactly how much my credit card is going to be charged for. I know exactly the type of shipping that I'm expecting. It's going to set up the expectations for everything that happens post-purchase, which could look like a thank you page. And a thank you page is really going to give that next step, that confirmation to someone that, yes, we have your order, we're processing it. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be thanking someone for giving you their hard-earned dollars. And it's also going to be an opportunity to still, even though it's maybe the end of one journey, it could be the start of a next. It could provide people with the opportunity to continue browsing, looking for similar products to add on to their existing order. It could also be a way for someone to contact, providing them with contact information or a way or contact form to get in touch with someone, if they made an error in an order after they've placed it and they need to make an adjustment. Giving some people that quick access to contact information is a great way after one goal has been completed to bring them to the next. And now that we've talked about a lot of different topics, a lot of different things that go into making a good user interface and good user experience, I think finally we need to think about, where we're going to start today. If we have a website that's been up, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad, we can get something out of it, whether that's a golden nugget out of a bad website, whether that's poor or underperforming pages on what we think is a great website. Analytics, typically, assuming it's been set up correctly, doesn't lie. The data doesn't lie. DDL, it's a mantra that we share within my organization, and it's data doesn't lie. If we have reason to believe that our data is good, it's healthy, it's representative of what's actually happening, it's a proper and good depiction, then we need to rely on that regardless of what our clients think, regardless of what we think, even as web developers who are living, breathing best practices every day, day in, day out. We need to really think, okay, what is the sort of next step that we can take? So I think ultimately what we need to be doing is thinking in our analytics. What has happened historically? We can look at other websites, like I mentioned, especially when we're designing a new website from scratch that we've never launched before for a new brand. But I think ultimately, if we have the data, we need to look at that first. And reviewing your own website analytics is going to be key. You're going to be able to identify such things as engagement or bounce rate. Engagement or bounce rate is effectively the same metric, just inverted. Engagement rate is for all the users that are visiting, for all the sessions you have, how many are going on to viewing another page, taking a next step. Bounce rate, of course, is how many of those users have not gone on to the next page or taking another step on the website. How many have visited a single page and left? How long are users spending on the website or on a particular page? Time on page or time on site is also a great indicator. If it's roughly going to take you 2 to 3 minutes to build up a cart or to create a booking, from a check-in date to a checkout date, add your information and book and then leave the page, and your average session is 15 seconds, well, you know, on average, people are not converting. You're going to see other indicators here, as we're going to talk about below, but that's really not congruent with what you expect your users to encounter when going through the website. So time on site is a great indicator as well as poor performance. Page views per session. Again, if it's that you have one single page on your website and the page views per session average is 1, you don't really have a problem there, but that's not typically how most websites are built. You want page views per session to be higher because then you know that people are engaging with the content on page. They are able to intelligibly and fluidly go through the website content and are able to, again, build up a cart, get more information. You can get an idea of what is happening on the web page and what you want to be happening, what should be happening based on the type of website you have. Conversion rate and also I'll mention add to cart rate are also, you know, if I'm coming into a website and it's an e-commerce website, regardless of what it's selling, one of the KPIs, key performance indicators, or one of the biggest metrics I want to know is what is the conversion rate? What is the add to cart rate? That's going to tell me a couple of different things just in the one expressed as a percent, what that 1 percentage point is. You know, if it's below 2%, we're looking at poor underperformance. If it's 2 to 3%, we're looking at adequate or good. And if it's above 3%, 3 to 5, we're looking at great. And above that, we're starting to get into, okay, we've got some things that are really working for us here. And conversion rate's really going to tell us, you know, our users are able to accomplish what they've set out to accomplish by visiting the website. Add to cart is also going to tell us the same thing. Are they able to engage with the catalog? You know, is there performance happening here? Exit rate, of course, will also tell us, you know, are users getting to a certain point on the website, whether that's the cart page or a product page, and exiting a page? Are they leaving the website for good, or for this session at least, from a specific page? We can look at exit rates by page within a tool like Google Analytics to understand better where users are jumping off, rather than, you know, a thank you page, which we want to have, which we expect would have a high exit rate because users have placed their order and they're done and they're moving on with their day. An high exit rate on a product page could be telling us either the product or the offer isn't there for them, or the add to cart button isn't clear or functional for them. And closely related, of course, is an error rate. So is your web page loading correctly on time? Is your server loading? Is it firing? You know, really making all these metrics, whatever metrics matter to you most, a key part of your marketing strategy, of your website management strategy, are going to make all the difference. And really thinking about reviewing this on a regular basis. It doesn't have to be every day. In fact, unless you're a large organization, I don't want you to look at your website analytics every day. It's too granular. It's too in the weeds. I'd want you to look at experiments or marketing outcomes over time. I don't look at it day to day, of course, unless you're, you know, spending that budget or you have that amount of traffic. But I would look at it week to week, and especially, you know, semi or monthly. And I would really look at, again, building in that sort of review and, you know, testing and identifying issues, reviewing analytics and what users are doing. Because analytics, again, the data doesn't lie. You know, for every probably 100 users that encounter an error or a bug on a website, maybe only 1 to 2 of them will ever actually action something, you know, complain to you, pick up a phone, write an email about it. Most will not. And without looking at your analytics or doing something like exploratory testing, you'll have no idea what's going on the website, unfortunately. And the sooner you catch an indicator of poor performance, either through testing or through reviewing analytics, the better. And of course, you're going to close up any potential parts of your leaky bucket. You're really going to make, you know, if you've invested, whether it's time and or money into your website, you're really going to get that feeling like you've got something out of it if you're the one who is clicking through and who is getting that instant feedback and who is understanding that they've made the best possible user experience that they can using the tools that you have and using all the items that we've talked about today. So thank you for attending the session with me today. I hope that there was some useful topics here discussed, and we'll kind of go over questions now. You can reach out to me directly. You can also book time with me directly, whether it's just to talk about how to prioritize a list of different issues when it comes to your website. You can also find me on Digiport, and I encourage you to follow me on Twitter and or LinkedIn as well. So we'll open up to questions now, and thanks again.